gotta say, I'm seeing faster frame rates right here on the Honor. The iPhone finishes first. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. iPhone 17 Pro Max versus the all-new Honor Magic 8 Pro speed test. Let's go ahead and begin with a boot up in 3, 2, go, and see which one can get there first. Now, the Honor Magic 8 Pro does have the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. It does have 12 gigs of RAM, and it does have the latest Adreno GPU. It also does have Magic OS, and it does have more AI features, you could see right there, and Android 16. So it does turn on faster than that of the iPhone 17 Pro Max. And I do have similar amount of apps loaded up on both. And we're still going to wait a bit there for 17 Pro Max. So quicker to boot up there on the Honor Magic 8 Pro. All right, guys, and let's go ahead and do a quick Face ID versus the Face Unlock on the Honor Magic 8 Pro. Now the Honor Magic 8 Pro, just like the iPhone, does have a cutout up at the top, and it does have a sensor base just like Face ID. And you'll see both of them kind of unlocked at the same time right there. And we go ahead and swipe right in. So let's go ahead and do that again. 3, 2, go. And you could see both of them pretty much the same time. And that fly-in effect is also kind of similar. You can see they're both kind of flying exactly the same way. Now the Honor Magic 8 Pro though does give you the in-display fingerprint sensor as well, and it also has kind of the same flying effect as the when you do it with the face, so not a substantial difference. But generally the Honor Magic 8 Pro, to me, because of the two options, is probably the better unlocking phone, because you have the in-display and the TOF sensor up there. So definitely I'm gonna go with this one on that front, but speed of unlocking is pretty similar, not too much different, but you do have the fingerprint unlock, which could actually speed things up for you. And when it comes to navigating their home screens, not very different. I do feel like iOS seems to move along a little bit slower. It's just the way it transitions to the next page. To me, it doesn't look quite as snappy as that on the Honor right there, but when we pull right here, it's about the same. It even kind of looks the same there. There's a lot of transparency effects going on for the Magic OS over there on the right, so definitely you can see the inspiration from iOS, but it's an Android phone. So if you like iOS, but you also don't really like Apple, you want to use an Android device, this could be a good option for you. But this does have an app drawer here, and you go ahead and swipe through like this. And then you can go over here to App Library, click right here, and you could just swipe through the applications like that. But generally the overall home screen is not too much difference. There is a ability to change the styles and how it kind of like goes through the pages, so you can change them between squeeze, perspective, and you could see right there, the list goes on. So there's definitely different ways to go ahead and see an animation for the Honor over there. So it's just something I wanted to point out. All right, so we're now at the application test. Let's see which one can launch these apps faster. We'll go to calendar. That to me looked like the Honor. Let's swipe up out of there. We'll go on the clock. That one was very close. I didn't see that one. I think it might have been the Honor, but I couldn't really tell. So let's go ahead and swipe up out of there. We'll go into calculator. That one was the Honor. And if I put the Honor into the dark mode, I think that calculator kind of looks the same almost as iOS. So let's go ahead and see. You could see it's kind of similar looking right there. There's a little bit more orange stuff going on over there for iOS, but the iOS never really has a light mode calculator. Let's go into Play Store, App Store. Bam, we're in there first on the Honor, but I did have that I think opened earlier. So let's just go ahead and make sure. No, it's just faster. Just want to double check. Sometimes I want to double check some of the applications. Let's go into ChatGPT, and you'll see that's faster for the Honor. We'll swipe out of there. Gemini, that blinked a little, but still faster on the Honor. I do notice though, the animations kind of look exactly the same. So let's swipe up out of here. Like, look at the way they fly out. This looks almost like imperceivably different. Let's go into Copilot. Like, you can't perceive a difference here. And so let's just do this. Don't allow. I think the Honor might have had that. Let's swipe up out of there. We'll go into Groupon. And that was faster on the Honor. We'll go to categories. I do notice that iOS still has a nice smooth polished look, but Android phones these days are starting to get really snappy with just like, they're just their little actions. Like, everything is just really, really fast. Whereas iOS still fast, but still has that, you know, that smoother look. Like sometimes it seems like it's intentionally not going as fast as it can just because, you know, just because they're trying to make it look smooth. Let's swipe up out of there. We're going to X, and X goes first to the iPhone. Let's click over here. We'll go to profile. And then once you're in, it's that same thing. Super fast scrolling on Android, slowing it down a bit. Sometimes when I'm scrolling on iOS, I don't know if you've just seen that, but it doesn't always look 120 hertz. Like I know they're both dynamically refreshing all the time, but so let's go ahead and launch Subway Surfers. And you'll see this is faster on the left when we hit play, but that was like almost nothing. So if you're the type of person who wants an Android phone that does really good in gaming, I think this one will be a good one as well. A lot of them are getting really good at this department, adding those RAM expansion modes. A lot of these Android phones are pretty good in this department. This was faster on the Honor, and we'll go into RTS. I will say certain games though are actually still looking better graphically on the iPhone. For example, Destiny Rising. I think the graphics look better on the iPhone than pretty much any Android phone I've tried. So certain games, I feel like the developers are still putting a little more effort in the iOS side of things. Let's go into Free Fire. Or it could just be the Apple GPU. I don't know. But you can see Free Fire first here on the Honor phone, and it takes the W. Yep. It was already in there first. Apple came along second. We'll go into Call of Duty now, and we'll see what happens. Game mode does trigger over here. I wonder if that slows us down a bit. Probably not. But you can see the Honor device in there. We're ready to go. There comes Apple. So I would already been able to press a match almost over here. And then in game, again, they are going to look kind of similar in certain games, but Destiny Rising to me actually looked better on the iPhone. We'll see what happens here, which one can get here first. We are just looking at launch speeds here. And generally, I find both of them to be fantastic performers. But, you know, Honor is definitely making some serious flagships these days. But the iOS takes a win here on Destiny Rising. We're going to start playing over there. And I'll show you a little bit of the gameplay. I don't know if it's going to pick it up too much on this angle, but it just looks a little better. Like you would have to see it in person. The actual, like just everything looks a little bit closer to console quality. I think on the iPhone, it's very good on Android as well. But just the sharpness around the character, it just looks a little bit more mobile looking for some reason on the Android side. If you've tried that on both platforms, let me know your thoughts. If you agree or disagree. Let's go into 3D Mark. You'll see that was faster on the iPhone. Speed Test Net, faster on the Honor phone. InShot, faster on the Honor phone as well. We got to call it like we see it here. Our eyes are not deceiving us. This Honor phone is winning. Let's go into Geekbench 6, and that's faster on the iPhone. Says, shut up, Nick. Not today. But yeah, overall, I think the Honor won more of these applications. So I'm going to have to give this test to the Honor device. You can also turn off animations on this phone just like other Android phones. If you disable them, these apps will look a little bit different. Like they'll pop right open like this as well. If you want to go ahead and disable it, you could do the same thing on iPhone. I tend not to do that though, because I think it looks choppier. It just don't look nicer though. Now I was testing this prior to making this video, and I got to say, in the RAM management, iOS is still one of the kings of this department. You know, OnePlus is really good as well. Samsung got better, but you have to turn off the back gestures and not the back gestures, the side swiping gestures on the Samsung with Good Lock to get it like this. But iOS still doing extremely well here, and I love the 12 gigs of RAM on this iPhone 17 Pro Max. I think it's going to give me a long-term, really, really nice long-term going between the apps. I really think it's going to be fantastic in that department. But especially like when you're going like this, and you're kind of like swiping like this, and you're popping between apps, you know, you can't do split screen. So at least have my apps open at all times, and 12 gigs really helps. Let's see how the Honor does in this department. And we'll go to Geekbench. Animation looks a little slower than iOS, if I'm being honest with you. Also, I'm gonna have to do a double swipe. Okay, so they have this floating window. If you swipe up to the top of the screen, it will kind of go into a split screen or a floating window. So yeah, we have to do the typical swipe twice on the edge there. And this animation does seem a little bit slower. So I got to give iOS this one. I think it looks better than the Honor phone in this area for sure. But this phone still does really good. And, you know, it didn't reload anything. So really solid. And it does have floating windows and split screen, mini windows. You know, you could do all kinds of multitasking on here. They also have a desktop mode as well. So there's a lot you can do with this screen size. Whereas on the iPhone, you can only use one app at a time, but it still does a really good job in RAM management. And we're now in the Wildlife Extreme test. And I got to say, I'm seeing faster frame rates right here on the Honor. The iPhone finishes first, but who's going to have the higher score? And I figured it would be the Honor, and it is. The Honor with a huge 7047 score, 42.2 FPS right there. So that's actually pretty good. If we swipe down here, you can see, what is this scoring better than? 99% of devices on the market. Wow. That is a phenomenal score right there. So I think we have a new champion here in terms of my Wildlife Extreme. I don't think I've ever seen a phone say it's better than 99% of the competition. Respectable here on the 17 Pro Max, 5808, 34.8 FPS. But if we scroll down here, scoring better than 95% of devices on the market, meaning there's about 4% of devices out there faster than your 17 Pro Max. The Honor 8 Magic 8 Pro is one of them, at least graphically. Let's go into the Geekbench 6, and we'll see what happens here on Run CPU benchmarks. So I'll be back when these are done. We'll see what kind of scores they get. Usually Apple wins here, and I wouldn't be surprised if they took a W here as well. So we'll see what happens here in Geekbench 6 though. And so here we are with the final Geekbench 6 scores, and you could see the iPhone 17 Pro Max absolutely crushing the Honor Magic 8 Pro. But I don't give these all that much credit all the time, because every single phone I compare against the iPhone always wins in this test. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't. I'm just saying there's something up with this. I don't know why it always wins in that one, but they tend to lose when it comes to other benchmarks. So for me, both of these are still incredibly fast and powerful phones. But the Honor Magic winning in that GPU 3D Mark test was definitely something. Let's go ahead and take a look at Speed Test Net. We'll see how they do with these Wi-Fi tests. We'll start here with the Honor Magic 8 Pro here on the right, and we'll see what this thing can pull in. And it's connecting right now. Give it a second. Let me go ahead and get this on the same server before I go ahead and run it back. And so you can see we're pulling it around 480 down, 470 or so. So we'll let this do its upload, and that's pretty similar to what I see on iPhone as well as Samsung device. Well, Samsung tend to do a little bit better actually, but this is pretty similar to what I've seen on the iPhone. Let's see how the iPhone does do here. I think it's going to be slightly higher, but it could be less though. We'll see what happens. 400. Nope, actually it loses there. 391. These are network dependent, but it is in the same server. You can run them back, but they're usually kind of the same, especially if you're doing it at the same time. But generally, the Honor is going to do very well in the Wi-Fi department. They both do have really, really strong Wi-Fi signals here in 2026. So they're pretty good in that department. All right, guys, and let's go ahead and just do a quick camera test here. We're going to launch the cameras. It's going to be a little bit tricky. These are big phones, but let's go ahead and hit camera. 3, 2, go. And actually, I was on the front camera on the Honor. Let's run that back. 3, 2, go. Faster to launch. It looked like the iPhone was faster, but then the Honor caught up. Yeah, they're pretty close. Not a huge difference there. And they both have pretty good shutter speed. The Honor does have pretty decent shutter speed, unlike some other phones out there. So definitely very, very respectable, and does have a 200 megapixel camera on here for telephoto. That's insane. Also AI imaging, but actually doing the results, I found that, you know, some of the pictures, especially at night, don't tend to outperform some other devices out there. But wrapping it up here in a speed test, I do got to say, I think the Honor is going to take the honors here. It's going to take the win in terms of sheer speed. I mean, it is a 2026 phone. It does have the newer chip. But the iPhone's still very efficient, still very strong, but, you know, it wins in the Geekbench 6, loses in the 3D Mark. But it's just the way iOS tends to operate and move along. It just kind of feels a little bit slower paced to me than the Honor. But both of them very good. I mean, these phones, finding the differences is kind of hard these days. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will catch you on the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well. And peace.